Snow drifted over Winterfell in soft, ghost-pale curtains, each flake a silent rune spinning through the night air. The gods would wear the storm like a shroud, its branchwork black against the dim glow of torches along the battlements. Beneath the great heart tree a boy knelt, bones aching from cold and wonder, eyes rolled white while the rest of the castle slept. Brandon Stark, called Bran, third son of Eddard, breathed frost and secrets, for the weirwood's faces had opened to him again. Bark became skin, sap became blood, and 1,000 years of memory poured through the red eyes in a torrent that felt like drowning. He saw a crown of black iron hammered in haste. He saw a stag rampant, lording over the quiet fury of a wolf. He saw a tower bathed in dusk blue, far to the south, stones weeping with the cries of a woman in labor. He saw a prince in rubies, alive with song, and a maid in blue whose laughter echoed like bells. And everywhere the drumbeat of war, hooves over muddy plains, steel ringing on steel, and fire, so much fire, sweeping the years clean. Bran clutched the damp earth, heart racing. These were not the gentle visions of his first green dreams. They tasted of iron and heartbreak. A twig snapped behind him. Bran's eyes cleared, returning to brown, as Jojen Reed stepped into the torchlight, his slight shape haloed by snow. "You went too deep," Jojen said softly. "I felt it across the courtyard. I had to," Bran rasped. His voice felt foreign. "Something is wrong in the past. I can feel it, like a broken bone that never set." Jojen knelt, palm against the roots. "Show me." Bran closed his eyes again, this time guiding Jojen's hand until both boys shared the pulse of the tree. Together they flew through rings of memory. The dance of leaves, the silent witness of ravens, the first blood spilled in the snow of an endless winter. They landed at a moment impossibly fragile. The tourney of Harrenhal, year of the false spring. The tilt yard lay awash in banners. Great seats of oak and gilt lined the viewing stands. Rhaegar Targaryen, silver hair shining, rode a pale destrier beneath an unbroken sky. At the foot of the dais, Lyanna Stark stood laughing, blue roses in her hair. Bran's heart quivered. He knew the stories, the abduction, the rebellion, the deaths that followed. Yet here, at this heartbeat of time, everything still hung in the balance. "Perhaps I can whisper," Bran thought. A leaf rode the wind, brushing Lyanna's cheek like a ghostly fingertip. She paused mid-laugh and glanced toward the distant trees where no one watched but the heart tree itself. Her brow furrowed. Rhaegar slowed his horse, sensing her change, and then, like ripples breaking, time snapped back to the familiar flow, the tourney crowd roaring again. But something subtle had shifted. A seed of uncertainty lay in Lyanna's eyes, and the prince's smile faltered as if he, too, felt an unseen thread tighten. The dream tore away. Bran gasped, half blind with snowmelt and tears. "Did you change it?" Jojen asked. "I don't know." The words tasted of ash. "I only touched the moment." "Even a touch can break a wheel," Jojen warned, "and wheels crush what lies beneath." Bran stared at the heart tree, its mouth twisted in agony or laughter. He could never decide. If one whisper could alter the doom of kingdoms, what would a shout do? Somewhere in the dark he heard the wind moan, and it sounded disturbingly like Hodder's name. Dawn came thin and brittle. In the great hall, Eddard Stark broke his fast beside a low fire while Maester Luwin read messages sealed in cracked wax. Bran slipped in unnoticed, ghost-pale and trembling. His father's gray eyes took him in. "You're up early," Ned said, though the smile in his beard faded when he saw Bran's face. "The boy had dreams," Luwin noted, glancing over spectacles. "Bad ones, I wager. Winter is hard on the young imagination." Bran's lips twitched. Imagination. If only. He sat, numb, as the maester droned about barley stores and millstone repairs. But then Luwin unrolled a scroll tied with a crimson ribbon. "From Riverrun," the maester said. "Lord Hoster confirms that Jon Arryn is in King's Landing and King Aerys remains secluded. But there is rumor." Luwin hesitated. "Speak it," Ned said. "That Prince Rhaegar has withdrawn from court." He rides often and meets secretly with unknown parties. Some whispers place him in the Riverlands. Ned's fingers tightened on his cup. Unknown parties? Travelers speak of a maid with a northern face, Lewin murmured. They say she rides like the wind. Ned rose abruptly. Bran's heart hammered. The dream was bleeding. Events were stirring months earlier than the songs foretold. His father's shadow now stretched toward a war not yet declared. Bran's stomach churned. He could almost feel the wheel grinding. South, in King's Landing, Rhaegar Targaryen stood alone in the Tower of the Hand. A scroll crumpled in his fist. The parchment bore but one line, written in a tight, severe script. She will not come to you again. M. The prince's violet eyes blazed. He thought of Harrenhal's field of honor, of Lyanna Stark's laughter, how it rang like crystal against the dull pageantry. Yet after the tourney she had slipped away, back to the north, and each raven he sent returned empty to Lond. Now this was warning him off. He paced the chamber. The walls felt narrow, the air sour with incense. The Mad King, his father, muttered in the red keeps dark corridors, whispering about wildfire beneath the city. Crown prince or not, Rhaegar could feel the realm rotting from within. Lyanna had seemed a scent of winter air, sharp enough to wake him from a lifelong fever. Wind rattled the shutters. Rhaegar turned, sensing a presence. Though no one stood there, only a rust-colored leaf lay on the sill, bent by the draft. Odd, this far south. He touched it, and a chill pricked his fingers. Something other was moving, a breath in the roots of the world. The prince closed his fist around the leaf as if it were a talisman. If destiny spun its threads anew, he would follow where they led. In the Dreadfort, Roose Bolton's maester noted an unusual raven from Winterfell. Lord Stark requesting updated counts of sworn lances, speeds of march through the neck, and grain storage sufficient for a year's campaign. That was months too early, the maester thought. War fever had not yet taken the land. But he penned the reply, sealing it with flaking pink wax stamped by a flayed man. South of the neck, Howland Reed read a different raven, coded, its lines disguised as a simple greeting. He burnt the parchment and set his folk to gathering bog iron for spearheads. The Crannog men had felt the weirwood stir. They needed no further sign. Bran watched these ripples from afar as snowmelt dripped from the godswood's bare limbs. Each night, he slipped into the roots again, seeking a gentler thread to pull, hoping to mend what he'd frayed. He followed Ned east to the Eyrie, trying to caution Jon Arryn with whispered ravens. He rode the wind south to stony September, murmuring to Robert Baratheon in his cups. But men heard only echoes of their own desires, and the fateful pieces moved still. Swords sharpened, alliances forged in secret, lovers drawn together like flint to tinder. Yet not all unfolded as before. Small deviations gathered weight. Near the Isle of Faces, green men woke from centuries of slumber, troubled by tremors in the song of the trees. At Riverrun, Catelyn Tully dreamed of a wolf whose eyes blazed blue like summer skies, warning her to steal her heart. And in the Red Keep, Ash Aradane lingered outside Queen Riella's chambers, sensing threads she could not name. One night Bran slipped too far. The vision dragged him beneath the red mountains of Dorne, through glittering caverns of sandstone where dayflowers grew in darkness. He found himself perched on the shoulder of young Arthur Dayne as the sword of the morning squared against Ash Era in playful duel. The dawn blade flashed starfire in the gloom. Bran felt the weight of destiny, a single sword that could sever or save the realm. Without thinking, he whispered, "Protect the wolf maid." Arthur's hand faltered. Dawn's point dipped, scratching stone. Ashera frowned. "Brother." Arthur blinked as if waking, lowering the sword. "I heard something." "What?" "A warning. Snow on the wind." He sheathed Dawn, troubled. That night he wrote a letter north, addressed to his sworn brother, Eddard Stark, though he had scarce reason. It spoke in riddles, of oaths and storms, of roses guarded by stars. Ned received it weeks later, puzzling over its meaning while wintered teeth gnawed at his thoughts of Lyanna. Another month passed. Spring's first thaw reached the King's Road. Bran's meddling grew bolder. He guided ravens carrying false messages to King's Landing, sowing confusion among Varys's birds. He nudged the dreams of Ser Barristan Selmy, urging caution. He whispered to Septon Maribald along the Trident, telling him to shepherd refugees west, away from fields that soon would run red. Each act felt righteous, yet each left him shaking with fear. The web was stretching tight, and he stood at its trembling center. Hodder, loyal Hodder, often found Bran shivering by the window after such nights. He would wrap the boy in blankets and hum tuneless lullabies. Bran clutched Hodder's arm, tears freezing on his cheeks. "If I break it enough," he whispered once. "Maybe it never snaps." Hodder only rocked him gently. "Hodder," he said, as if it meant all will be well. But the past fought back. At Storm's End, Robert Baratheon dreamed of ravens circling a weirwood pyre. He woke furious, convinced the North plotted against him. His letters to Lyanna, once tender, became sparse, then ceased. At Dragonstone, Prince Viserys, only a boy, heard voices in the seafoam warning that dragons must be woken soon, or fire would fail and darkness win. Even the Night's Watch reported strange lights beyond the wall, and Lord Commander Corgyle sent word south that the woods have grown restless. Bran felt time knot around him. Jojen coughed blood after each green dream now. The price of walking roads never meant to be trod. Mira grew quiet, eyes haunted. "We were meant to guide the three-eyed crow," she said, "not replace him. Tree roots will rot before I let my family die," Bran insisted. Yet as he spoke, he glimpsed a future where Ned's honor cost him his head, where Robb bled out in a stranger's hall, where Sansa's songs turned to screams. Those were old echoes of the unaltered timeline, fading, but in their place rose new horrors. Rivers choked with wildfire, Aerys' laugh echoing beneath blackened skies, and a shadowy king in the north whose crown of ice froze the sun itself. Summer 282 AC came at last, and with it the spark. Prince Rhaegar rode east with 200 knights, not to abduct Lyanna at sword point, but to parley with northern lords in secret. Bran watched from a raven's back as Rhaegar knelt before Lord Rickard Stark in the Frostfang foothills, pleading for a marriage that might unite fire and ice. Lord Rickard, smelling treachery, demanded proof of the king's blessing. Rhaegar could not give it. Steel flashed, words broke. When snow settled, 12 men lay dead, among them Benjen Stark's best friend and 2 Dornish bodyguards. Rhaegar fled with wounds both worldly and reputational. The wolf's howl, they called that skirmish, and the realm shook awake. Jon Arryn sent falcons across the kingdoms urging restraint, but Robert slammed his warhammer on High Hall's table and shouted for banners. In Riverrun, Hoster Tully locked his gates, uncertain which side the river should follow. King Aerys, hearing of northern insolence, ordered Lord Rickard and his son Brandon to King's Landing to answer for murder and treason. Bran's heart froze. He had tried to steer them away from abduction, believing peaceable talks might avert the rebellion. Instead, blood spilled sooner, motives twisted darker. The scaffold stood ready all the same. On the ride south, Brandon Stark paused at the inn of the Kneeling Man to water horses. Bran, skin changing a sparrow, perched under the eaves and listened to his uncle's laughter, bold and doomed. If only he could scream into Brandon's ear, "Turn back, take Lyanna and ride for White Harbor." He hovered, wings trembling, but a hawk swooped. A creature of Varys's, perhaps, and Bran's control shattered. He flailed through branches, losing the sparrow, the moment, everything. When his own eyes opened, Bran lay on the tower's cold stone floor in Winterfell, mouth tasting of dust. Something in the distance tolled like a funeral bell. In the Red Keep's throne room, wildfire torches guttered green. Rickard Stark stood chained, armor scorched from the king's cruel device. Brandon writhed with a noose tightening, hands bleeding as he clawed futilely toward his dying father. Bran watched through the heart tree, tears hot. He had tried to stop this, yet somehow here they were, sooner than before, the agony new minted. But in the gallery, hidden among courtiers, stood Ser Arthur Dayne and Ashera, summoned by secret words to witness the king's justice. When Ricard's screams filled the hall, Arthur's face went white as milk. He turned and left without royal leave, Ashera following, her hand gripping his arm. Outside the gatehouse, Arthur pulled her into shadow. "It is madness," he said. "If the king uses fire as rope, the realm will burn whole." Ashera trembled. "And Rhaegar knows naught of this," Arthur swore. "He seeks Lyanna still to make her his queen. But after today, the North will hunt his blood regardless." "We must stop him," she whispered. "Stop them all." He drew Dawn, holding its milky edge to moonlight, as if hoping the sword could answer. But only Bran's unseen eyes watched, despairing. Through sleepless weeks, Bran fought to mend what he had undone. He urged Catelyn to right Ned of the king's cruelty sooner. He coaxed the Crannogmen to harry royal scouts in the neck, delaying armies just long enough for Ned to evade capture at Riverrun. He whispered to Robert's maester to double the watch on a certain poisoned wine, sparing the Storm Lord from an assassin's kiss. Each act bought breaths, not peace, and somewhere beyond storms and battle lines, the White Walkers stirred at a song too discordant to ignore. At last the fateful year tipped into autumn. Robert's rebellion, though poets would name it otherwise, raged across three fronts. Storm's End flew the heart, Winterfell the dire wolf. Highgarden waited, wary of picking sides. Dorne seethed over spilled Dornish blood in the Frostfangs. And in the Riverlands, a young knight of the Kingsguard, Jaime Lannister, walked nightly past naked stone walls, wrestling with vows that bound him to a king he now knew to be mad. Bran tried to reach Jaime, too, to nudge him earlier, perhaps toward a fateful choice that might spare thousands. But the Kingslayer had not yet earned his name, and his dreams were heavily guarded by Lannister pride. One night Bran slipped into Jaime's mind regardless. He tasted golden wine and the copper tang of guilt. Words formed on Jaime's tongue. The king must be stopped. But the light of dawn broke the spell, and memory of that conviction fled with the dreams. Meanwhile, Lyanna Stark had disappeared. Not abducted by Rhaegar, no, not this time, but spirited away by her own brother Benjen, who feared every sword drawn in her name placed her neck upon a block. They fled into the deep of Skagos, among cannibals and towering cliffs, carrying only half-truths and the weight of prophecy. There, amid cold shores, Lyanna felt life quickening in her belly, and Benjen whispered prayers to nameless gods that his sister's child would not doom them all. Bran watched from crows overhead, his soul aching with each beat of her child's heart. He had nudged this fate as well, though he did not know how. Perhaps the trees themselves shaped outcomes beyond his will. The weirwoods sought balance. Human joys were collateral. Across this widening chaos, the old stories still bent toward a tower of joy. But the players now marched different roads, and Bran had no map for the new script. All he had were endless nights, white eyes, and the drip of resin where the heart tree bled for every whisper he spoke. 5 hours, Bran thought once, bent over roots so thick they seemed veins. 5 hours to tell a tale. Yet this tale now spanned lifetimes, its branches tangled as the weirwoods themselves. He feared the ending, whatever shape it might take, yet knew he would follow it all the same. For love of family, for duty, for hope that somewhere in the melody of time, a kinder verse might yet be sung. So he gathered what strength remained and plunged again into the dark between moments, seeking a single note that could still turn storm to lullaby, war to memory, and bleeding crowns to seeds of spring. The snows beyond the wall whispered of strange kings awakening, and southward the trident watched, coiled like a viper. The game was no longer the one told in familiar songs. The wolf had howled early, the dragon burned too soon, and in the roots of the world a boy from the future reached into yesterday, weaving and unweaving the very cloth of destiny, one trembling vision at a time. Snow whispered against the shutters of the broken tower all night, but Bran Stark never heard it. He lay on a pallet of furs, eyes rolled white, body stiff as cold iron, while his soul rode the rivers of the weirwood's memory. Dawn bled pale over Winterfell before Mira could shake him free. When at last his sight returned, Bran stared at the rafters, breathing like a drowning man, heart pounding as if he had run leagues. "I saw 2 suns," he muttered. "One was the old sun, dying. The other was new, yet colder." Mira brushed his clammy forehead. "Rest. You've been gone longer each time." "I cannot rest," he rasped. "The wheel is wobbling. If it falls, everything breaks." She eased him upright, but Jojen was already at the threshold, thin shoulders rigid. The green seer's eyes had grown hollower of late, as if each dream leached marrow from his bones. "What did you change?" he asked. "I tried to mend, not break," Bran answered.
Iguida ser barristans duts.
"I taught Howland Reed a song that wards against fire. I whispered to Lord Manderley to store grain. Small things. Small stones can start avalanches," Jojen warned. "You saw 2 suns, twin futures colliding. Which burns true?" "I don't know," Bran shivered, "but I fear the cold sun wins." South of the neck, Ned Stark studied Arthur Dayne's riddle by the candle's ebbing stub. "Beware the dawn that belongs to no sky. Guard the rose lest it drown in dragon's blood. Stark honor is a blade of ice, tempered, easily snapped." The words haunted him as war councils thundered about provisioning and fealty. Catelyn watched from the fireplace, fingers clenched in her skirts. "Your face is grayer than winter," she said when the captains filed out. "Dayne knew something," Ned murmured. "Something that frightened even him." "Frightened a sword of the morning?" "He saw the king's madness early, I think. He saw how Rhaegar's desires might tear the realm." Ned touched the letter with a gentleness reserved for ghosts. "If only we could forge peace." "Peace ended the moment your father and brother died screaming," Catelyn said. "You cannot barter with wildfire." "I may have to," he admitted. "Robert would smash every last Targaryen skull. Yet Arthur hints the prince seeks some reconciliation." "Reconciliation?" "Rhaegar's men killed Rickard, let Brandon strangle. And yet the crown prink. He himself rode north to propose marriage, not abduction." Ned dragged a hand across weary eyes. "What if we have been wielding hate against the wrong foe?" Outside, ravens cawed. Ned heard in their cries the voice of his little brother Bran, as if the wind carried child-soft pleas across miles of snow. He set jaw to keep from trembling. In a camp along the Trident, Robert Baratheon hefted his warhammer and cursed the rain. He crushed a melon on a stump to amuse his lords, juice splattering like brains. But at night quiet fears gnawed him. Visions of ravens wreathed in flame chased him through sleep, and a dire wolf with icy eyes barred his path to a moonlit maiden. Jon Arryn found him pacing at dawn. "Dreams again. Damn dreams," Robert muttered. "Stupid birds. And Lyanna. Always Lyanna. We march soon. Keep wits clear." "I tried, Jon. Sent ravens. Begged her to come south. No answer. I swear Ned is hiding her." Arryn sighed. "Ned is juggling storm clouds. Word is the north gathers, but not yet for King's Landing. They want Rhaegar's head, yet dread what wildfire might do." Robert snorted. "Bring me within swinging distance. I'll spare them the dread." A scout galloped in, mud-flecked and wild-eyed. "Your Grace, sorry, my lord. Royalist outriders ahead. 6 leagues. They carry green banners, not the king's red." "Green?" Robert's brow furrowed. "Tyrells this far north? Could be Prince Rhaegar's personal colors." Robert's knuckles whitened on the hammer haft. "Then the gods deliver me one gift." Arryn caught his arm. "If you strike too soon you play into Aerys' hands. Let the prince choke on his father's lunacy first." Talk, Robert growled. "I'll choke him on this." He hefted the hammer. Rhaegar Targaryen fled the Green Fork with only Ser Jon Connington and half a dozen loyal shadows. Rain soaked his cloak, plastering silver hair to brow. For days they zigzagged through alder thickets to shake Storm Lord scouts. Every river crossing felt like a crossroad of destiny. East, the Vale might grant refuge. West, the Westerlands, where a golden lion watched with unreadable eyes. South, Dorne smoldered like coals touched by frost. He chose south, driven by one truth. Only Prince Doran understood the currents beneath the storm. Rhaegar's ribs ached from the wound taken in the Frostfang skirmish. Infection throbbed hot, a mirror to his desperation. Each night he fingered the leaf he had found on the red keep sill, now brittle as parchment, veins blackened. Sometimes he fancied it whispered, balance. At other times, doom. They reached the high passes of the Red Mountains beneath a hunter's moon. There the prince's palfrey slipped on scree and almost plunged. Rhaegar rolled free but cried out as stitches tore. Cunnington cursed softly, lifting him. Your wounds require a maester. They require truth first, Rhaegar panted. If I die before I speak with Doran, half the realm burns for nothing. Half? Cunnington asked. Rhaegar's violet gaze flitted to distant darkness. Perhaps all. Eastward at Starfall, Arthur Dayne counted stars that failed to shine. He had ridden ahead of Ash-Era, leaving her at Sunspear to carry private letters to Prince Doran. Dawn lay unsheathed across his lap like a pale sliver of dawnlight that never brightened. He replayed the throne room screams again and again, the stench of burning flesh. Kingsguard vows clashed like sparring blades with the promise he had made Lyanna at Harrenhal, that no harm would come to her. And then the murmur under his helm, a voice not his own, protect the wolf maid, chilled him more than wildfire. He almost did not notice the raven that landed upon Dawn's flat, black against milk-white steel. The bird wore Winterfell's seal. Arthur broke the tiny tube with numb fingers. Only 3 words inside, in Ned Stark's careful hand. Meet me quietly. No date, no place. Yet Arthur understood. The Northmen would come south soon. Under arms, under grief. Their paths would cross like swords or allies or both. Lyanna Stark crouched in a cave high on Skagos, hands pressed to her swollen belly. The unborn child stirred, a flutter like moth wings. Benjen knelt at the mouth, scanning bleak waves. He had traded his cloak for sealskin to ward off the island's relentless sleet. When he returned, he carried gull eggs and news. Ravens flew east this morn. Black wings. Lyanna wiped hair from her eyes. Father always said black wings bring black words. They fly to the wall most days. Today they flew west again. What's west of Skagos? Nothing you'd want. He knelt. We can't stay. The clans grow curious. We can't go. She laid his hand on her belly. Not yet. Not until... It's safer. Nowhere is safe, Benjen whispered. Robert marches. Ned raises the north. And Rhaegar. 7 hells, Lyanna. I don't know what Rhaegar does. She shivered. He would keep me from the Mad King, at least. Benjen looked away, ashamed of the sour jealousy that flashed. He could not keep father or Brandon. Lyanna's tears came silent. The wind tried to steal them, but they clung like frost. In her dreams of late, a boy with brown hair stood beside her bed, pleading with eyes too old. She woke each time gasping, unable to remember the words, only the sorrow. Beyond the wall, the cold sun Bran had foreseen glimmered at midnight, a shard of pale aurora pulsing where none should be. Lord Commander Corgyle sent rangers to investigate. They returned shards of ice that burned like dry timber when touched, and tails of trees bled white where ravens gorged themselves. Samwell's brother Dickon, a new recruit, reported seeing shapes tall as giants walking the frozen river, eyes blue as the heart of hail. Corgyle sent word south, 3 ravens in case one failed. Bran heard their cause in his sleep and woke screaming. At breakfast Hodder spooned porridge between Bran's trembling lips. Luwin fussed, claiming fevers, but Bran saw far past the maester's tallow candles. The others stirred earlier because he had accelerated men's wars. If summer fires devoured the south, winter horrors would devour the north. He begged Mira to fetch ink. A letter to the Eyrie. I must warn Uncle Brinden to fortify the bloody gate. Mira hesitated. You said too many ripples. This is no ripple. It is the sea hurling itself against every shore. She wrote at his dictation, though her hand shook. Once done, Bran sealed it with dark wax imprinted by the direwolf. Hodder carried him to the rookery, but the raven Bran chose would not take the letter, pecking his finger until blood welled. Only when Bran whispered a prayer, half plea, half threat, did the bird relent and fly. At Riverrun, Ned Stark's banner host swelled as Karstarks, Mormonts, and Umbers arrived. Great John Umber brought 300 spears and an eagerness to break Targaryen skulls. Yet even he sensed Ned's hesitation. "You smell of doubt, Stark," the Great John boomed after a war council. "I smell snow on the wind," Ned said. "Snow? Bah, smells like dragon dung to me. March or kneel." "I will march," Ned promised, "but not blind." That night he received a secret visitor beneath Riverrun's weeping willows. Howland Reed, cloaked in cattail brown, eyes reflecting torchlight like a marsh cat's. The Crannogman knelt. "My lord, the trees say your brother Bran yet lives."
Ned staggered.
"Bran is at Winterfell, of course he." "That Bran," Howland said. "But also another Bran, a shadow behind the bark, the same that whispered the Bog Iron song." Ned's throat tightened. "You speak riddles." Howland's gaze never wavered. "A green seer changes rivers and thinks them brooks. We few who listen must damn what we can. The battle you ride toward is not the one sung in future halls. The Dragon Prince means to sue for peace at Stony September 5 days hence. If you meet him there, the rebellion may yet end without wildfire." "Peace," Ned's voice cracked. "Or doom," Howland added softly. For the Mad King read auguries too. He now plans to test his stockpiles beneath King's Landing should his son defect. You must choose. Parley with the prince and gamble Aerys' hand, or fight Rhaegar and let hatred burn slow while winter's true enemy wakes. Ned closed his eyes. The willows wept above him, fronds brushing his cheeks like mother's fingers. He pictured Bran at Winterfell, Arya clambering towers, Robb training with wooden swords, fresh snow unmarred. The choice weighed colder than ice. "I will go to Stony September," he said at last. "May the gods judge my folly." At the Great September of Baelor, Grand Maester Pycelle poured Sweetleaf into King Aerys' cup and spoke of loyalty. The king's fingernails were crusted black, his beard untrimmed, eyes ringed by crimson. He clutched the cup and whispered, "Dreams of green fire," again and again. Pycelle bowed, but Varys, lurking, caught every tremor. That night, Varys met with Kevan Lannister in a dusty corridor. "The king builds pyres beneath the city," Varys warned. "He means to light them if the wolf and stag encircle the walls." Kevan frowned. "My brother serves as shield." "Does he?" Varys murmured. "Or as sword poised against king or realm? Ask yourself where Jaime's honor truly lies." The spider moved on, leaving Kevan cold. In another corridor he found Elia Martell's wet nurse sobbing. Princess Rhaenys clutched a doll with limbs charred black. The doll, they said, had burst into flame without spark. Some called it accident. Varys called it omen. At Sunspear, Aishera Dayne delivered Rhaegar's secret letter to Prince Doran. The quiet prince read by moonstone light, face shaded by the lattice cast of shutters. When he finished, he sighed. "My sister Elia would beg me to answer with hope," he told Aishera. "But hope is a blade without hilt." Aishera bowed. "He seeks safety for Lyanna and her child." "Child?" Doran paused. "The rumors are true then?" "Yes, my prince. A babe of both winter and dragonfire. Rhaegar would protect mother and son from his father's monsters." Doran folded the letter. "He invites me to Stony September to prove Dorne stands for union, not vengeance. Will you go?" "My bones ache, Lady Dayne. I cannot ride such distance swiftly." He placed the letter on a low brazier where it curled to ash. "But Oberyn can." The red viper attended within the hour, eyes bright as garnets. Doran pressed Rhaegar's signet into his hand. "Take this to Stony September, speak for Dorne, and watch the Wolf Lord. He may yet be our ally." Oberyn grinned. "And if not, then strike swift as your namesake." Aishera watched from the archway, heart thudding. She sensed a tide turning, but toward what shore she could not tell. Bran's body weakened as his spirit ranged farther. Often he woke in strange positions, sprawled halfway down corridors, dragged by Hodder to safety. Maester Luwin muttered of fits and prescribed dream wine, which Bran poured into the rushes when no one looked. One evening, as the first red leaves of autumn whirled over the yard, Bran collapsed mid-sentence at supper. He awoke in Hoarfrost Hills, skin-changing a fox racing through underbrush. Icicles dripped from pines, though the day was mild. A figure blocked the trail. A child of the forest, hair green as moss, eyes gold. Bran halted. The child raised a hand and spoke in a tongue older than runestones, but Bran understood in his marrow. Too many threads knotted. Come home, little broken one. The song must find new singers. I can't, Bran cried with fox voice. I have to fix. Fix? The child's laughter was whined through reeds. You healed no wound, you carved new scars. What was meant to slumber wakes. The cold is impatient now. Bran shuddered. Tell me what to do. Unmake the knot. Let the old sun rise alone. Let the river run as once. Undo everything? Despair nearly crushed him. I will lose them. Better few lost than all, said the child. Honor the pact. Then she vanished, leaving only footprints that filled with frost even as Bran watched. He leapt, trying to follow, and crashed into his own body in Winterfell's hall, gasping under Hodder's hold. The next morning Bran asked Jojen, "What is the pact?" Jojen's eyes brimmed with green sickness tears. The pact between first men and children. Men guard the groves. Children share the magic. But men break oaths as easy as bone. Bran whispered, "Have I broken it?" "I think," Jojen said, voice thin. "We all have in living." Stony September baked in late summer haze as wagons jammed its narrow lanes. Merchants cursed war taxes, innkeeps watered ale. Yet within sight of the low stone walls, 3 armies lurked. The Stag's host of Stormlanders and Moonmen, the Wolf's columns of hardened Northmen and River Knights, and Prince Rhaegar's weary guard flanked by a flying column of Dornish riders led by Oberyn Martell. Small folk whispered that the gods themselves had gathered for judgment. Fields between the town and the Green Fork sprouted pavilions. Stag on gold, dire wolf on gray, dragon 3-headed and blazing. Tension tasted like copper on the tongue. Rhaegar, pale but resolute, stood beneath a white silk canopy. A hush fell as Ned Stark rode from his line. Robert approached from the opposite flank, hammer across pommel. Oberyn trotted in last, crimson cloak trailing heat. Ned dismounted first, sword sheathed. Robert did not. Rhaegar bowed stiffly, wound aching. "My lords," Rhaegar began, "I come not to fight but to mend. My father's reign rots. I aim to end it for the realm's salvation." Robert's laughter thundered. "End it by wearing the crown yourself, Silver Prince?" "End it by peace," Rhaegar replied. "Lyanna Stark carries my child." At that, Robert charged. Only Jon Arryn's shout and 10 mailed arms halted him. Foam sprayed from his destrier's bit.
Ned blanched.
Oberyn raised weary hands. "Robert," Ned said, voice shaking, "hear him. He defiled her." Robert bellowed, "I'll gut him and that child both." Rhaegar flinched.
Istula no inusansa.
Lyanna came by her own vow to shield the babe from Aerys' malice. The king desired dragonwrought heirs untouched by northern blood. "I defied him," Robert spat. "Lies." "Not lies," came a gentle voice. Sansa Dane, disguised as a squire, led in a gaunt figure. Lord Rickard Stark's maester, Carlton, who had been thought dead after King's justice. He bowed to Ned, throat scarred but voice sure. "I witnessed the child quicken." The king raged when he learned, swore to purge the wolf from the dragon line. "Yet you let my father burn," Ned whispered. Carlton wept. "I failed him." Rhaegar fled the capital seeking aid, but the king's pyres rose too swift. The air quivered. Robert's hammer trembled. Ned felt worlds pivot. If Rhaegar's tale proved true, blame for Brandon and Rickard fell not on the prince but on the Mad King's madness. a madness Rhaegar now vowed to end. But other fires kindled. On the ridge beyond stony September, banners of gold and crimson appeared. Lord Tywin Lannister's host, long idle, marching at last. Ned's heart lurched. Does he ride for king or conquest? Rhaegar's shoulders sagged. I sought his neutrality. Seems he chose his own hour. Robert hissed. The lion means to feast on corpses no matter who dies today. Oberyn fingered his spear. Then perhaps wolf, stag, and dragon must stand together. Robert eyed him. You'd trust a viper's word? The viper wants his sister and her babes kept safe. You want Lyanna. Stark wants justice. Our paths align more than you think. Before an answer came, horns blared. Lannister outriders seized a grain cart, torching it to smoke out the fields. Panic rippled through small folk. Archers knocked on battlements. Rhaegar drew steel, wincing. Attends-moi. Ned lifted his sword. Robert swung the hammer to shoulder. Oberyn smiled a serpent's smile. And Bran, far north, felt the weirwood roots shake. The battle that followed would one day be called the Turning of Three Kings, though only one true king fell. It began with Lannister arrows hissing down like golden rain. Robert charged first, ignoring Ned's plea for discipline. His hammer a comet against the red tide. Dornish spears flanked him, Oberyn's laughter ringing. Northmen formed a shield wall to cover the prince as Rhaegar's guard attempted to push civilians into cellars. Amid the chaos, Bran's influence burst like a dammed river. He was every crow circling, every leaf twisting. He shouted warnings through rustling grass. He jostled reins so that Squire Gendry tripped into Robert's path at the instant an unseen crossbow bolt flew, saving the Storm Lord from certain death. He tugged at Tywin's standard-bearer, causing the lion banner to dip, signal mistaken for retreat, sowing confusion among western ranks. Yet he could not be everywhere. Flames licked cottages. Women screamed. Limbs scattered wheat stalks. Dawn blazed in Arthur Dayne's hand when he rode in from the north with a dozen white cloaks who had abandoned the capital. He cut through Lannister vanguard toward Ned. The two friends met in a swirl of dust and dread. Arthur.
Ned gasped.
No time, Dayne barked. King's Landing walls weep wildfire. Jaime sent word the pyromancer's light fuses. We must seize the city before the madman ignites it. Then we ride tonight, Ned said. With dragon, wolf, and stag? Dayne looked toward Robert battling in smoke. If we can stop them killing each other first. The sun dipped red when Tywin ordered horns blown to recall his men. In furious councils through the night, he argued the Lannisters would march straight for the capital, open the gates in false fealty, and let the mob tear Aerys apart before wildfire touched spark. He needed no alliances, but stony September's fields moaned with wounded lions. Supplies burned. His war-wise captains urged caution. Pride warred with prudence. At dawn, Lannister scouts found the Dragon Wolf host gone, headed south at breakneck speed. Tywin cursed, realizing he might reach the city second and find either a new regime or ashes. He marshaled men, though morale sagged. Robert's host remained behind to bury dead and tend wounded, barking that the wolf and dragon could carve each other while he sharpened his hammer. But Jon Arryn whispered sense. If Tywin claimed the capital first, Robert would wear no crown at all. So the stag limped south 2 days later, battered yet unbowed. Bran watched the converging fates like storm fronts on a map. Each night he slipped deeper, seeking the hinge where he might restore balance. Yet each vision showed only further branching. In one, wildfire devoured half the city but Rhaegar saved the rest, ruling a shattered realm. In another, Robert smashed Rhaegar's helm on the Trident's banks. Yet the Night King advanced unopposed through a civil-ruined north. In yet another, Tywin's treachery crowned a Lannister boy-king while Bran's family scattered to foreign shores. Each future glimmered, then frayed like half-burnt tapestry. One dawn he opened his eyes to find Leaf, one of the children of the forest, standing in Winterfell's godswood. No mortal guard saw her. She touched Bran's cheek, her skin bark and velvet. You chase ripples, she sang softly, but the stone remains. I must keep my family. And what of families seated after you meddle? Shall they wither for your love? Bran sobbed. Tell me which choice saves most. Choice is illusion. Sacrifice is truth. Leaf placed a weirwood arrowhead in his palm. Cut one thread cleanly. Let the weave heal. Which thread? You know it. You've always known. She vanished between heart tree roots, leaving Bran with a shard of bone white as moon and sharp as sorrow. He stared until blood welled in his fist. King's Landing baked under late summer sun when Rhaegar's vanguard topped the King's Road rise. Smoke drifted from chimneys, normal as any market day. Yet every gate was shut, portcullises rhymed with fresh pitch. From the smoky distance they heard faint chanting, "Wildfire for traitors!" Rhaegar's heart seized. Jaime's secret message had warned of barrels hidden beneath September, under corners, even the dragon pit. If fuse meets flame, 500,000 souls die screaming. He turned to Ned Stark beside him, Arthur Dayne, Oberyn. Their alliance was fragile as spun glass, held by dread more than trust. Ned drew steel. "We take the city or we all burn." "Better we burn than my sister," Robert growled, arriving with broken host. He eyed Rhaegar. "But you'll try your piece first. One chance." Rhaegar nodded. He rode forward alone, standard furled. At the mud gate a single figure awaited. Jaime Lannister, white cloak streaked with soot, golden hair matted. He unlatched the postern and ushered Rhaegar inside. "The king sealed himself in the throne room," Jaime whispered. "He has Lord Rossart and pyromancers, barrels everywhere. I can open the passages, but—" "I will talk to him," Rhaegar said. Jaime grabbed his arm. "He will not listen." "Then I bring mercy," the prince answered, drawing a dagger no longer than a child's forearm. The hilt was weirwood ivory, the blade Valyrian, etched with old runes. Bran felt its pull across leagues, the arrowhead's twin. Jaime swallowed. "Mercy's price is treason." "For the realm," Rhaegar said and strode away. Bran perched unseen on the throne room lintel, a crow among gargoyles, watching destiny walk. Aerys sat hunched, nails bleeding lines down armrests, muttering of dragons coming again. Rossart hovered, torch in hand. "My son," Aerys croaked, lips split. "You come to kneel?" "I come to end pain," Rhaegar whispered. Aerys laughed until phlegm spattered marble. "Pain ends when fire cleanses. Burn them all." Rossart advanced with torch. Rhaegar stepped close, voice barely breath. "Father, forgive." A quick flick. Valyrian steel slid under ribs, finding heart. Aerys' eyes widened, firelight dancing across madness. In death he seemed child-frail. Rossart shrieked, dropping torch. Jaime leapt, slaying pyromancer with swift stroke. The torch smoldered on flagstones, inches from oil-soaked fuse. Jaime stamped it out, trembling. Rhaegar wiped blade on his cloak. "Open the gates," he ordered. "Tell the realm the king is dead." Jaime stared. "And who rules?" "Not I." Rhaegar's gaze turned northward, as if seeing beyond hills to iced seas. "The realm will judge me a kinslayer, but better stained hands than ash bones." Outside, armies clashed with bewildered gold cloaks until white banners unfurled from towers. Crimson sun over black, sigil of the prince. Fighting slowed, confusion thickening like mist. Robert pushed through to the Red Keep courtyard, face a thunderhead. Ned dismounted close behind. Rhaegar emerged, cloak crimson with father's blood. He knelt before Robert. "Take my life," he said. "Take the crown. Spare the child in Lyanna's womb." Robert raised his hammer. Bran felt the world hold breath, but Ned stepped between. "Brother," he pleaded. "Enough ghosts." Robert's shoulders trembled. He looked at Rhaegar, warrior, minstrel, now patricide. "Lyanna loved you?" he spat. "Ask her," Rhaegar said. "She waits north." Robert's hammer lowered inch by inch. "If she denies it, I swear I'll haunt you in the Seven." "Then we both pray her truth holds," Rhaegar whispered. Bran slumped in the godswood, spent. Jojen's weightless hand touched his. Did you cut the thread? I think so, Bran said, voice tiny. Then the weave heals? Or unravels? Bran stared at the weirwood faces. They seemed calmer, sap tears slow. Somewhere, two suns still fought for the sky, but perhaps now one dimmed. He unclenched fingers. The arrowhead lay dissolved into dust, sacrifice complete. From far away a raven cawed, not warning, but greeting. Bran closed his eyes, letting the old sun warm his skin. For the first time in moons he felt small and simply a boy, and for now that was enough. Yet winter's breath still lingered in the air, a promise etched in every drifting leaf. Stories never end, only pause between heartbeats. And in that pause the world waited, holding its fragile new balance like a cup of morning light, praying no hand would slip. Hodder's voice echoed soft across the courtyard, calling him back to breakfast, to brothers' laughter, to the living. Bran turned his face toward the sound, and for the moment did not dream. Ash-pale dawn seeped through the shattered windows of Maegor's Holdfast, laying glass shard patterns across the flagstones where blood still clung in tacky pools. Rhaegar Targaryen knelt at the center of that broken light, shoulders bowed beneath a cloak now dark and stiff with his father's lifeblood. Outside, hammering and shouts told of gold cloaks disarming pockets of resistance. But here the silence pressed heavy as the crypts beneath Winterfell. Ned Stark lingered near the doorway, sword sheathed, reluctant witness to the prince's private penance. Rhaegar spoke without lifting his gaze. They will name me Kinslayer until the moon turns black. Ned stepped closer, boots splashing in a smear of green candle wax. You saved 500,000 souls. Let the bards weigh that against a single life. Rhaegar gave a dry laugh. Bards are men. Men prefer simple songs. Traitors, heroes, monsters. It comforts them to carve clean lines. Then carve your own, Ned answered. Not with steel, with mercy. He offered a folded parchment, Robert's writ, signed in a sprawl of fresh ink. Full amnesty should Lyanna prove unharmed. Succession to be determined by council. The war ended if the Mad King is dead and wildfire quenched. Rhaegar took it between blood-stained fingers, reading each line twice, studying the blot where Robert's quill had stabbed through. At the bottom a second signature, smaller and precise, bore the trout crowned with antlers of Jon Arryn, who had wrung the concession from Robert over cups of wine and grief. A long breath escaped the prince. This spares my men, and spares the realm new slaughter. But there is a condition yet unspoken.
Ned nodded.
You must meet Robert face to face, without blades. For a heartbeat Rhaegar seemed to shrink, as though his father's crown, somewhere lost among tumbled rubies, had dissolved to ash between them. Yet he stood, wiping palms on ruined cloak, and the morning light caught silver hair like a halo tarnished by storm. Then tell the stag I bend the knee, not in fealty but in penitence. If he will save Lyanna, I will carry any burden. They walked out beneath the red keep ramparts where lanterns guttered in smoky dawn. Workers hauled casks of wildfire from cellars, each vessel cradled like a venomous egg. Jaime Lannister directed them, voice hoarse yet edged with grim purpose. Seeing Rhaegar approach, Jaime stiffened. For an instant he seemed a golden statue poised to shatter. Rhaegar paused. Sir Jaime, the realm owes you more than songs will ever sing. The young lion's mouth twisted. The realm will call me Oathbreaker still. Oaths kept can birth abominations, Rhaegar said softly, and Jaime looked away, sword hand trembling. They descended to the outer bailey where Robert Baratheon awaited. The Storm Lord leaned on his hammer like an old farmer on a staff, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, armor dented and streaked with gore from stony September wind ruffled dark curls now silvered at the temples by weeks of sleepless rage. When Rhaegar halted 10 paces away, unarmed, Robert's fingers flexed on the haft. Lyanna lives? He demanded. To my knowledge, she is safe in the north, Rhaegar answered. I have not seen her since the Frostfang skirmish. Robert's chest heaved. Your knowledge, Silver Prince, has shed good men's blood, and my ignorance would have shed the city's, Rhaegar replied. Then he kneeled upon muddy cobbles, cloak pooling. I yield, Robert, name me monster, exile me, slay me. Only give her chance to bear our son free of fear. Silence hummed. Ned's hand hovered over sword pommel, not in threat but in dread that Robert might strike. But the hammer stayed. Robert Baratheon's great shoulders sagged as though the weight of 7 kingdoms crushed them. Your son, he rasped, will carry wolf's blood and dragon fire. Gods help us all. Rhaegar bowed his head. Then let gods decide. Call a great council. Let every high lord weigh my sins and the mad king's. The realm is tired of councils, Robert growled. Yet the wrath leaked from him like wine from cracked cask. Very well, but until they speak, you remain my prisoner. Unguarded, unshackled, yet bound by honor.
Ned exhaled.
The die was cast, fragile yet holding. Tywin Lannister reached the gates at noon. His columns had marched on through scorched farmlands, their crimson and gold banners wilting in hot breeze. Expecting open gates from a grateful city, he found drawbridges raised and arrow slits bristling with suspicious archers in new, makeshift tabards, wolf on gray above dragon on red. He demanded parley. Jon Arryn rode out flanked by Howland Reed and Brynden Tully. The Hand in fact greeted the Lord of Casterly Rock with measured courtesy. Tywin's pale green eyes read the soot on Arryn's mail, the blood smeared on Reed's sleeve, the weariness in the Blackfish's set jaw. News traveled faster than ravens. Tywin knew his gamble was lost. King Aerys is dead, Arryn announced. Tywin's eyebrow arched. Who sits the Iron Throne now? No one. It is kept empty pending a council of the realm. You speak for the realm, Lord of the Eyrie? I speak for what remains upright. Tywin's chill smile flickered. You'll need coin to feed half a city of refugees. The rock's granaries and gold remain at the council's disposal, of course. How gracious, Reed murmured. Tywin ignored the Crannogman. And who seeks royal pardon for the sack of my wagons? Arryn inclined his head. Compensation will be weighed once crown accounts are tallied. They danced polite steps around treason and avarice until Tywin understood no window remained for swift conquest. He offered hospitality, supplies, alliances, anything to slip a Lannister seed into the new order's soil. Jon Arryn accepted little, promised less, and sent him to quarter near the city's west walls, far from armories and crucial gates. That night, as torches flickered beyond his silk pavilion, Tywin wrote 2 letters, one instructing Kevan to rein in the lions, the other to his son Jaime, still cloaked in white inside the Red Keep. Do nothing without my word, he penned, then hesitated, pen scratching. He added, but remember your family's place above oaths writ by dead men. He sealed it with blood-red wax, lion rampant, and prayed the boy would decipher the unsaid command. Far to the north, the wall groaned beneath unseasonal ice. Lord Commander Corgyle assembled his senior rangers by lamplight inside the King's Tower. Maps lay pinned by knives. Harps of wind keened across arrow loops. Dead villages sighted again at the Milk-Water Forks, reported Ser Dennis Mallister. Not raided, emptied. Doors left ajar. No livestock. No corpses. Tracks? Corgyle asked. None mortal, Mallister said. Yet snow in those valleys will not come for weeks. Samwell Tarly, quill shaking, recorded each word. Beside him Dickon Tarly stared at a shard of glassy ice fetched from beyond the Frostfangs. Black veins lacing translucent core. A ranger claimed it hissed when placed near flame. Corgyle's fist thudded the table. We've sent 3 ravens. No reply from Winterfell, none from King's Landing. If war choked the Citadel's routes, we may be left alone. Mallister scratched his beard. Perhaps we ride south ourselves. Beg lords to send men. Abandon the wall? Corgyle growled. We hold. In the quiet that followed, wind thumped again, though none could say if it were mere air or some giant, unseen, testing the stones. Samwell's quill snapped, ink blot blooming like midnight on the map. At Winterfell, Bran watched storms gather behind the horizon's gentle curve. He had retreated from the Weirwood Dreams since surrendering the Ivory Shard, yet roots still whispered beyond edges of hearing. Jojen sat cross-legged by the heart tree, eyes closed, fingers dug into moss. Mira polished a knife beside him, her watchful gaze drifting between boy and weirwood. "They ride to Skagos," Jojen murmured at last.
Uncle Ned?
Bran asked. "Yes, Ricard Karstark guides them through shivering sea mists. They'll land at White Sister by moon's turn." Bran's heart beat once, painfully slow. The vision of Lyanna's cave returned, frost-rimmed mouth opening onto black stone. He remembered her unborn child's flutter like moth wings. Will they make it in time? "Time is thread and snarl," Jojen said. "Some strands fray even as hands reach. Tell me straight." Bran's voice cracked. Jojen opened eyes turned glassy emerald. "Ned Stark must arrive before the child draws first breath, else winter's hush steals mother and babe." Bran swallowed. "Can I help? Would you risk the pact again?" He hesitated. A flush of shame warmed his cheeks. Leaf said cut one thread. "I did, but the knit still trembles." "Then faith remains in mortal hands," Jojen replied. But mortal hands crossed leagues too slowly for Bran's fear. At dusk, as ravens fussed in rookery, he slipped once more into Warg's skin. This time a snow owl coasting over the shivering sea's slate waves. Air tasted of salt and sorrow. Below, Ned's small convoy pitched on creaking deck, torches guttering. Bran hovered, silver wings edging cloud, a silent sentinel. On the deck of the caravel Northwind, Ned Stark studied a crude map smudged by spray. Beside him Brienne Castle, Ser Roderick's niece, tall and sinewed, pointed toward jagged silhouette knifing out of fog. "Skagos." "It looks hungry," she said. Ned offered a thin smile. "Some say its goats eat men." "And the cannibals," Brienne added. He folded the map. "I fear words more than teeth. The wrong tale burns kingdoms." Damp wind ruffled his graying hair. Memories of Brandon's laughter, Ricard's stern gaze, Benjen's youthful mischief all marched like ghosts across the swell. He clenched Arthur Dane's riddle in pocket. "Guard the rose lest it drown in dragon's blood." Lyanna, his rose. Dragon's blood, the babe. He prayed the sea stay gentle just long enough. Within the cave on Skagos, Lyanna labored. Benjen paced, torch in hand, sweat glistening though earth breathed cold. A midwife of the isle, a stooped woman with teeth filed to points, knelt between firs murmuring guttural songs. Lyanna's cries echoed off stone like breaking glass. Each contraction seemed to claw at Benjen's chest. Midnight stretched, torch stubs died. When dawn sent a pale spear through chinks above, the child crowned. Lyanna bit a strap of boiled leather, eyes fever-bright. Blood pooled black on pelts. With final shudder the babe slid free, giving no cry. The midwife slapped tiny back once, twice before thin wail rose. Benjen sobbed with relief, but the midwife's expression remained unreadable. "A boy," she rasped. "Lives." Lyanna sagged. "Let me hold him," but her lips already blued. Benjen knelt, gripping her hand. "Stay. Stay until Ned comes." She stared past him toward stone ceiling. "Tell our brother, winter roses never fade." Then her grip slackened. Benjen pressed forehead to hers, tears falling onto the child cradled by fanged midwife. Wind moaned through fissures like funeral dirge. Outside, snow began to fall though high summer still ruled the south. In King's Landing the Great Council convened within the Dragon Pit, chosen both for size and because wildfire barrels still hidden beneath the September made noble bellies uneasy. Lords and ladies crowded tears. Mace Tyrell, Balon Greyjoy, Jon Connington. Prince Doran's seat empty though Oberyn stood glowering in his place. Silent sisters bore Aerys' shrouded body along a stone aisle, placing it before dais where the Iron Throne had been dragged for spectacle. Across the corpse lay Rhaegar's ruby-bedazzled sword, offered as admission of guilt. Maesters tallied grievances. 20,000 dead since the Wolf's Howl. 80 villages razed. A crown treasury bled. Tywin Lannister proposed young Viserys as king with Queen Rhaella to serve as regent. Mace Tyrell seconded in hopes of marriage prospects. Oberyn vetoed, citing Dornish blood spilled. Robert Baratheon thundered for elective kingship by a claim of proven valor, meaning himself. Lord Hoster Tully suggested a 3-year regency followed by moot. House Greyjoy, bored of mainland quibbles, hinted at declaring for no one. Arguments knotted for hours until Oldtown's Archmaester Valen addressed the assembly. What of the threat beyond the wall? Ravens speak of dead men walking. Laughter rippled, quickly dying when Valen brandished raven skins inked by Corgyle. Ice shards, emptied villages, unnatural snowfalls. Chill crept through Marble Chamber. For the first time Tywin's poise slipped. Robert slammed his cup. Fables to distract from dragon spawn. Rhaegar, seated humbly below dais, rose. Fable or not, we face cracked realm. United rule we must agree upon now, or winter will claim what war spared. Tywin sneered. And who unites? The Kinslayer. Ned spoke for the first time, voice low yet carrying. Kinslayer, perhaps. Savior, certainly. I stood witness when he stopped wildfire from burning every soul here. Murmurs spilled like stirred hornets. Oberyn sees chance. Dorne proposes compromise. Robert Baratheon crowned king. Rhaegar named Prince Regent until child of Baratheon's choosing comes of age. In return, all houses swear sword and coin to Wall's defense and to rebuilding charred districts. Dorne will shoulder 1/5 costs.
Choc silence de tiers.
Robert frowned. Prince Regent? Why put Snake near the throne? Because Snake learns from fire, Oberyn quipped. And because the wolf will vouchsafe him. Will you, Lord Stark? Ned's gaze locked Robert's. Memories of childhood laughter on snowy battlements flickered. For peace, I will. Robert's jaw worked. He looked at the shrouded corpse of the Mad King, then at Rhaegar's bowed head, then at faces of hungry lords smelling power. Very well, he said at last. I'll wear your damned crown, but by the 7, the first hint of treachery from dragon or viper and I finish what my hammer began. News of Lyanna's death reached King's Landing the same twilight Robert swore provisional oaths. A lone Karstark rider stumbled through Mudgate, half dead from specters on snow-choked trails. Ned met him in Tower Stairwell where torchlight painted sorrow orange across stone. Your sister bore a son, the rider croaked. She named him Jaehaerys, but she bled, my lord. She's gone.
Ned bowed over ballast, shoulders shaking.
When at last he straightened, tears had frozen to salt crust. And Benjen, he lives, guards the babe. They await your word. Ned dismissed the rider, then found Rhaegar in the garden of pale sweetgrass. Word had reached him already. His face ashen, hands clenched so tight nails drew blood. They stood beneath rustling lemon tree transplanted from Dorne. No words at first. Crickets chirped. Night smelled of smoke, sea, and lemon blossom. Finally Rhaegar said, I would have given crown, life, songs, anything but her. Ned's voice broke like thin ice. She's with Brandon and father now. Rhaegar closed eyes. And our son stands alone in a world ready to scorn him. He stands with us, Ned replied. And he stands with the realm, if we have strength to keep it from tearing him limb from limb. They agreed on Seacrest. Why until council settled? Rhaegar begged Ned to foster the child at Winterfell until tempers cooled. Ned balked, honor twisted, but at last bowed to need. Bran hovered in owl flesh above the lemon tree, tears hot in avian eyes. Lyanna's death echoed through his bones like hollow drum. He wanted to swoop down, cry forgiveness, yet even his feathers fluttered guilt crushed him. If he had not nudged lines, perhaps his aunt would live. Perhaps the babe would still be, but in safer halls. Leaf's whisper returned. Sacrifice is truth. Bran clenched claws on branch. Maybe this was the thread fate demanded. One life for many. But the ache in Ned's shoulders screamed denial. Bran flapped away before sorrow swallowed him whole. Days passed while carpenters tore wildfire drums apart and silent sisters burned plague-strewn corpses beyond King's Gate. Rhaegar remained confined to Maegor's library, translating scrolls on long night lore, perhaps seeking penance in parchment. Robert tested crown fit each dawn but delayed coronation until council resolved banners. Tywin courted allies with feasts of honeyed quail. Oberyn sparred in Tiltyard with knights twice his size, grin sharpened for blood. Jaime lingered outside vaults where swords of prior kings lay entombed, fingers tracing hilts through iron bars like priest at reliquary. One humid afternoon, Varys glided into throne room bearing fresh parchment from the wall. Archmaester Valen received it, read aloud. Villages at Queen's Crown deserted. White hounds found frozen midstep. Weepers raiders quitting domains to flee south. Small folk in gallery gasped. Robert grunted. Northern ghosts again. Ned stepped forward. If the night's watch begs, we answer. My army's ride once child is buried. Tywin yawned. The North's problem seldom crosses the neck. It might cross when we're weakest, Rhaegar said from shadowed alcove. Council tempers flared until Valen lifted gnarled hand. Ancient texts speak of pact between first men and children. Sigil of wolf stands sentinel. If wolf line fails, darkness walks. He turned to Ned. Lord Stark, yours is that line. Guard it well. Whispers stirred. Rumors of bastard babes, southern queens, and now unborn princelings with direwolf eyes. Tywin sensed leverage. Robert sensed threat. Oberyn sensed legend. Only Ned felt the true chill. Meanwhile, at Skagos' eastern cliffs, Benjen prepared small skiff to bear child and his mother's shrouded body south. The Isles people gathered, some ringing bone chimes for the dead, others eyeing the babe with wary awe. The midwife pressed carved horn charm into Benjen's palm, a goat intertwined with weirwood root. He is storm of seasons, she croaked. Wolf, dragon, and goat. Feed him 3 songs or hunger will eat him. Benjen thanked her, though meaning unknown. As tide turned, sail billowed. Benjen cradled infant wrapped in fur, whispering favorite childhood tales of Winterfell pools. Behind them Skagos' peaks receded beneath low fog, a silent tomb for Lyanna. Seagulls circled as if to escort. Bran felt the boat's progress like tug on spider's web. He risked one last warging to guide them through shoals, this time a gray seal who nudged keel from hidden reefs. It cost him. When his mind snapped back to Winterfell, nose bled, limbs shaking. Within hours fever burned. Mira pressed cool cloth to forehead. Jojen massaged hands stiff like roots. Too far, Mira murmured. He walks between worlds too often, Jojen answered. His body weakens. Bran wheezed. Let me see him home, then I'll stop. Swear it, Mira demanded. I swear, Bran whispered, though not sure he could keep word if snowlines kept moving. At King's Landing, Grand Maester Pycelle brewed physic of milk of the poppy and fragrant basilisk blood, offering it to Robert with sly encouragement. Eases battle aches, calms restless mind. Robert quaffed deep, not noticing Tyrell's servants exchanging looks. That night he slept dreamless for first time in moons, but at dawn his pulse pounded like drum, temples throbbing. Pycelle claimed such vigors would pass. On the 3rd day, Robert rose late and found Jaime Lannister awaiting with sealed letter. From my father, Jaime said. Robert read, Storm Lord reigns in tavern, not palace. Lion will roar louder. Robert crumpled parchment. Ill-scented fury welled. He barked for the council to assemble. In the gallery, Tywin wore placid mask. Robert strode before iron throne, voice echoing, Enough councils. Today we crown, or today we fight anew. He produced stag antler circlet hammered by royal smiths. If any contest, step forth. Silence. But as Robert lifted circlet, Pycelle cleared throat. Your grace, some lords question your vigor. They propose regency until you wed. Robert's face purpled. Question my vigor, old toad? He hurled crown clattering down steps. Take your regency. Sod off with it. He stormed from hall. Lords murmured like stirred bees. Tywin watched crown left lonely on marble. That night Cersei Lannister visited Robert's chamber with flagon of arbor gold. Hair perfumed, words soothing. She found him pacing, half-armored, heart riven. She listened to tales of Lyanna, offered comfort, feigned tears. Robert drank until grief blurred into carnal longing. At dawn, Cersei left quietly, a satisfied smile curling. In her womb, hope of twin heirs might soon coil, binding stag to lion. But dawn also carried Benjen's skiff through White Harbor's bite-chill spray. Lord Wyman Manderley met them, cheeks flushing at sight of infant. Manderley arranged fast courier to Winterfell and another south to King's Landing. Word galloped faster than fresh snow could drift. Ned read the Raven perched above Dragontail Tower parapet at dusk. He left council mid-debate, descended spiraling stairs, and found Rhaegar in sept lit by candles. Without speaking, Ned handed scroll. Rhaegar scanned, child safe. Name withheld. Suggest secrecy until northern lords swear fealty. Beneath, Benjen's mark. A stylized direwolf inside compass rose. Tears gathered in Rhaegar's eyes. He kissed seal, then fed scroll to candle, ash spiraling. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me, Ned said. Now we guard him. And you? Rhaegar asked. I serve my king, whoever realm crowns, but first I bury my sister.
Ned exhaled.
Then I march to the wall. The great council reconvened under storm-loud skies. Robert entered pale yet resolute, crown once more in hand. Beside him strode Cersei in virgin white, the first appearance since hostilities. Rumors of secret betrothal crackled like wildfire along tiers. Robert declared, I will wed Lady Cersei within moon's turn. Until then, Ser Jon Arryn governs as hand, Prince Rhaegar as regent, and Tywin Lannister as master of coin to rebuild. Lords Tyrell and Martell each supply grain and levies to the wall. All lands burned by war exempt from tax 3 years. So sworn by crown and council. Resistance scattered, pockets pacified by promise of spoils or fear of fresh swords. Tywin inclined head, masking triumph. Oberyn smiled thinly, calculating Dornish gains. Hoster Tully thanked 7. Balon Greyjoy weighed rebellion but pocketed future grievance. The realm for now found shape. Winterfell stones shone wet when Benjen crossed drawbridge bearing the child. Bran, still fever-weak, watched from wheelhouse window. The baby's eyes, violet tinged with frost gray, met his a moment long as a heartbeat yet carrying histories. Bran imagined 2 sons merging. Jaehaerys, and what else might he be called? Snow? Stark? Targaryen? Leaf's words echoed. Feed him 3 songs. Maester Luwin took babe to warm chamber. Benjen knelt before Robb and Sansa. Hodder boomed gentle greeting. Bran felt peace bloom though fever still licked. For first time, he wondered if his visions sprouted not ruin but strange new hope. Months rolled. Robert's wedding to Cersei consumed courtly gossip. Jaime resigned White Cloak to be named Warden of the West. Kingsguard vows bent under Tywin's machinations. Rhaegar oversaw grain shipments north, toured burned river hamlets, listened to small folk grievances with haunted gentleness. Ned carried Lyanna to Winterfell crypts, laid her by Brandon and Rickard, Tear's watering stone. He named the babe Jon Snow publicly, claiming him his own to shield from court intrigue. An echo of secret he would bear like brand of ice. South, Archmaester Valen assembled scholars, forging orders for dragonglass mining on Dragonstone's black slopes. In Bravos, whispers of Westeros unity unsettled Titan towers. In Pike, Balon Greyjoy sharpened axes beneath salt wind, resentment brewing. Yet for a span the land healed. Fields plowed, bridges rebuilt, songs woven about stony September where 3 kings had stayed their hands. But beyond the wall winter sharpened. A patrol led by Corran Halfhand vanished near the gorge. Samwell heard horns one night, 3 blasts carried faint across frozen forest. Only he and Ghost, albino direwolf newly adopted from wild litter, returned to Castle Black, eyes wide with terror. Ravens flew. This time they reached Winterfell, then King's Landing. War councils gathered again, this time banners of every house present. Rhaegar proposed sending dragons, if they could be reborn, to melt the dead. Robert vowed smiths would forge Valyrian alloy axes. Cersei sneered at northern superstitions but ordered wildfire stores moved to Harrenhal as contingency. Bran's healing progressed slowly, though he walked again with iron braces forged by Mikken. He spent evenings by hearth telling little Jon Snow stories of old heroes. During God's grief, Queen Nymeria, Bran the Builder. Benjen often joined, eyes distant, perhaps hearing echoes of Lyanna's laughter. Jojen and Mira watched silently, guardians of a boy who had once moved mountains with whispers, now content to spin yarns. Yet nights Bran sometimes slipped half awake, mind skimming tapestry of futures. He saw Jon groan, wielding sword of dawn-white glass against dead kings. He saw Rhaegar atop wall of ice, crown cast aside, harping song that made Aurora's dance. He saw Cersei's children, fair as Lannister gold, tear realm anew with hunger. And he saw himself, roots twined through heart tree, eyes jet black, as ravens settled on branches to hear prophecy. He would wake then, heart pounding. Mira would stroke his hair until calm returned. She never asked details, he never offered. They both understood too much had been said between worlds already. At Castle Black, the first snows of true winter fell early, swallowing fields south of Gift. Robert rode north with Rhaegar, Ned, Jaime, and a host half-pageant, half-uneasy alliance. Banners of lion, dragon, stag, and wolf snapped together under frigid sky. Torches burned green occasionally, wildfire braziers to deter dead. When they reached the wall, Samwell led them to glaive-notched gate where icicles sang under wind. Lord Commander Corgyle greeted them with drawn face, gestured to beyond. An unending white plain littered with shapes like stones that moved when none watched. Robert shivered despite bare fur cloak. "Seven save us, they are real." Rhaegar's violet eyes reflected star-cold horizon. Then songs must become swords. On Winterfell's ramparts the next dawn, Bran watched pale ribbon of aurora, wondering if this was cold sun he had foreseen. But beside him Robb rested hand on hilt. Sansa carried scrolled letters to muster Vale and Riverlands, and Jon Snow, bundle of furs now cooing, gripped Bran's finger with surprising strength. Life throbbed still beneath winter's breath. Bran whispered to unseen leaves, "I will no longer steer rivers, only stand sentinel by their banks." Wind carried a scent like sigh. Yet somewhere deep beyond world's edge, in caverns of blue ice, a figure crowned in storm shards tilted skull toward far south, sensing destinies woven against him. He lifted arm and snow answered, swirling into shape of spear frosted with black crystal veins. The same veins Bran had seen inside fallen shards. The war had shifted but not ended. The wheel had been bent, not broken, and every choice yet demanded toll. But for now, torches burned bright atop the wall, and men looked east and west and north, standing together while dawn painted frost pink. A fragile dawn Bran prayed would last, even as he knew every dawn passes into night, and every vision, once altered, breeds another yet unseen. When the watch sirens rang fivefold that evening, signal of army glimpsed at distance. The first to step to parapet was Robert, warhammer raised. Ned beside him unsheathed ice. Rhaegar tuned heartstring of silver-gilded bow he had fashioned from weirwood branch gifted by Bran through Jojen's secret courier. Jaime spun 2 blades at once, golden hair blazing like torch fire. And down in Winterfell, Bran felt their courage pulse across roots and rivers, through woven vines of time, into his own heartbeat. No subtitles named the moment, no herald prophesied outcome, only breath of men and whisper of snow and distant, relentless creak of glacial doom approaching. Yet Bran smiled, bittersweet, because while visions might twist, valor could bloom anew each turning day, and that, more than any thread he'd cut or tied, might be gift enough to see old sun rise warm again when long night finally passed.